Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Constance the Reader, and we're here for the second part of my reading wrap up. So if you were so kind as to watch my previous video, where it was just all about manga I read in the month of April, you would then know that this exists because that was just such a long ass video. Okay, I knew I had to break it up into two parts. So yeah, for something that was almost 30 minutes, hopefully this is not the same, but if it is, thanks for sticking it out with me. If it's not, either way, thanks for watching both. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so we are doing everything I read that is not manga in the month of April in this video. We're also going to be talking about the Naruto TBR challenge. And I don't think I'll have enough time to keep this short enough to then talk about what I want to read in the month of May. So that may be an additional video. If so, that actually looks good for me because I got some stuff going on in the month of May for work, so I don't know if we'll have a lot of time to film. Hopefully the TBR isn't as ambitious. I'm filming this on the 2nd of May, so we'll see when I film the other video. I have like a few hours to just be kind of sitting in my office and in my living room thinking about all the stuff I want to read. That can be very dangerous. So without further ado, let's talk about what I did end up reading, and then the TBR game. So as far as what I did end up reading and for the TBR game, of course I won. So worst rated manga, I chose Momo the Blood Taker. Now that was only based off of what I actually read for the TBR of the month of April. I didn't go through my shelves and look at every single thing that had a rating. I just thought that would be too time consuming. But I will say I really liked Momo the Blood Taker, but it only had a 3.61 rating. Not bad though. Shortest book on your TBR, I read We Still Here by Mark Lamont Hill. A book you meant to read in 2022, I chose Die Dark. Your choice, Record of Ragnarok. Your choice, Platinum End. And a reread of a book you weren't in the mood for when you first started, and that was A Flicker in the Dark. So I won the month of April's TBR challenge. I'm amazing. So let's talk about the books that I don't physically have with me. So first, Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. This actually releases in November on the 28th of this year. So I got this from NetGalley, which was really great. So it took me a long time before I opened it up. I'm disappointed in that, but this year I'm also determined to read what the fuck I get approved for on NetGalley because I need to do better about that. And I finally raised my score to 70%, so look at me. So I'll start off by saying I think I'm gonna rate this like 3 stars. I did enjoy it, but if I could have only gotten one aspect of this romance, I would have been much happier. So Gwen and Art Are Not in Love is an historical fiction romance, like kind of young adult romance book that I did find pretty enjoyable. So Gwen, she is a princess, I guess in Camelot, but like after the time of like Arthur and the Round Table and stuff. She is due to be married. Okay, it's about time. She should have been married already. And she hasn't wanted to do it. And she really doesn't want to do it now because the person that her father, the king, wants her to get married to, because that's been her betrothed, is Arthur. Now, 2 issues here. 1, she doesn't like Arthur. I don't like Arthur. Arthur is annoying and he really almost ruined the book for me. I could not stand him as a character. The second issue is that she's a lesbian, okay? She doesn't like men. She is kind of pretty much in love with this female knight named Bridget. And as far as the romance on that part of the book, I loved it. I liked Gwen as a person. I liked Bridget. I liked Bridget's friends. I liked all of that. Then we have Arthur. I don't like him as a character. He really pisses me off. He's very unlikable. And for me, when it comes to books, if there's a really unlikable character, it's hard for me to like the book because I just can't get over how insufferable they are. Arthur reminds me of the character in Red, White, and Royal Blue. He's the son of the president. I think his name was Alex. He was so annoying that it made me dislike the book even more. And actually, now that I think about it, there's a little bit of a similarity. So I don't want to get too much into it because this book hasn't been released yet, but that's not a surprise. Okay, these 2 people don't like each other. They're both not attracted to the opposite sex, but unfortunately, they are most likely going to have to get married. They both are kind of determined to do something to make this marriage not happen, but somehow they discover the other's secret. So Gwen attracted to women, Arthur attracted to men. And Arthur's reputation isn't the best, right? He's known for being a party boy. He goes out, lots of, you know, lively, ruckus behavior. Gwen, not so much. She's a scholar, she's a reader. You know, she's very quiet, doesn't have any friends. So not only are they opposites in that, like, their personalities are so different, they're also not attracted to each other in general, and they don't like each other because of really stupid little things from when they were kids. Mostly from Arthur's part, in my opinion. So Arthur is just so much. Anyway, interesting. Liked that for the most part. But then, like, there's this ending. And the reason why another reason why I didn't rate this highly was because I did kind of feel like the big conflict, it's not that it came out of nowhere. It's more like, I felt like it was very rushed. Like, oh, okay, something's gonna happen to the realm, you know, the kingdom. So Lex Croucher did sprinkle things in there, you know, to foreshadow what could happen, but I don't know, I did kind of feel like this big climax at the end, this big, like, conflict, I almost didn't see the point of it, and it wasn't my favorite. So, yeah, ending wasn't my favorite. I only preferred one of the characters in this book. But I would still recommend it. I think that some people would actually end up really liking it. It's just, for me, when it comes to characters, if a character is really unlikable, it's hard for me to continue to, like, really like it anymore. And then, like I said, I do kind of feel like for something that I felt was just going to be strictly a romance, it was kind of added onto this, like, extra part of the story, which was fine, but at the same time I was like, was this really necessary? But it's okay. 3 stars. Next, I read Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. So this was also something I was approved for on NetGalley, and this is a novella, which I did not know when I requested it, and when I first opened it up. I was like, oh, am I even going to be able to finish this before the month of April is over? And I did, because I'm that bitch. Thank you very much. But really, really good. For something that was a novella, it did not feel like how some novellas feel, right? Very rushed, almost like you didn't really get to know anybody. But obviously that's a novella. Like, yeah, it's short. Like, that's the whole point. But the thing with Fonda Lee that she did in this book is that I just felt like I had read something that was so much longer than what it really was. So our main character, Esther, we are seeing this whole world and everything happen through her perspective from present day, not like in 2023, but, you know, when she is a young adult. And then sometimes we get a little bit of background for what happened to her as a child. It all kind of revolves around and opens up with her about to train her first ruck. I think that's what they were called. Basically, they're giant birds that can be used kind of like a weapon in a way. Now you can use them for hunting, but the big bad, like, monster in this novella is a manticore, and that plays a huge part because of something that happened in her childhood. And then manticores terrorize regular people all the time, and the rucks are kind of like the only things that can really kill them. So we are spanning quite a few years in this very short book, which is so cool to me. So Esther, we see her when she first meets her ruck, her bird. We see her as time goes on, as she's kind of developing relationships with other, like, handlers of these birds, possibly getting into a relationship or something that is like that, where it's comfort and, you know, we have something in common, friendship, how some people want this practice to be taken more seriously, they need more money. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this, and it just didn't feel like it was that short to me. And all of it culminating to this really, really sad ending. Like, it's so hard to say that it's, like, completely sad, because I do feel like there's a bit of hope in it, but it was definitely a great read. So I would say I'd probably rate that like 4.5, 5 stars. I think it was good. I think it's worth a read. If you like Fonda Lee, I think that you will like this book. Next, I read The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I love Tiffany D. Jackson. Now, is this the second book I've read by Tiffany D. Jackson? Yes. Have I only read 2 books so far? Yeah. Do I care? No. She's one of my favorite authors now. Thank you very much. Especially this and White Smoke. I just think that they're so well done. Like, very spooky, very eerie, and The Weight of Blood was just so good. So I'm going to start off by saying it was 5 stars. It was an audiobook. The narrator was fantastic. The story, I loved it. But the thing that Tiffany D. Jackson does that drives me crazy, but but it makes me love her even more, is that she ends the book in a way that I feel like, give me more, please. Like, I don't want it to end. How could you end it? But I don't mean that in an angry way. I only want to become like, I'm stressed out because I want to know more. Like, these characters mean something to me and I want to know. So, to keep it as simple as possible, we're talking like a Carrie retelling, right? So our main character, her name is Maddie. She is young, like, I think she's like a freshman in high school, maybe the next, what comes after that, a junior? I don't know. I haven't been in high school in a long time. But young girl, she, to everyone in this really small southern town, she's a white girl. She's a weird, quiet white girl. Her dad's a racist, but he's obsessed with the 50s. He has like an antique shop. She dresses in poodle skirts. Everyone makes fun of her and says, oh, you smell musty, because she's wearing these antique clothes or vintage clothes. And, you know, she is a very mousy young girl. She is scared because she has been ridiculed for pretty much all of her life. Such a sad character, right? But when we open on this book, it is very important, because they're in PE class and they're outside. It's very important, her whole life, that she never be outside in the rain. Okay, her dad has basically beaten her into submission to never reveal this secret, and she definitely can't be caught outside in the rain. Why? Because then everyone will realize that she's actually biracial, and that all the time that they sit down and they straighten her hair, as soon as it gets some moisture, she is going to have it reactivated with the curls, and they will know that her mother is a black woman and her dad is white, and that's just not okay. So this is during like present day. You'll just say that it's 2023. So it's a southern town. It's not like there are no black people in this community, but it is an extremely racist community where they still to this day have a segregated prom. So when it is exposed that like, Maddie's hair isn't straight, the ridicule is amped up even more, which has a chain of events that make this book pretty wild. So like I said, Carrie, we're talking telepathy, we're talking about a girl who's abused, who is trying to control these new powers that she realizes that she has, and also trying to discover more about herself. So Maddie is not the only point of view that you follow in this book. You also get a young guy. He's like the star quarterback. His name is Kenny, I believe, and he is black. You have his girlfriend who is white. That's kind of a thing, you know, between them. And just like with any Tiffany D. Jackson book, you know, there's gonna be some stuff going on, and I just think that it was so good. And like I said, the ending, it had me so sad, because I really want to know what happens to these characters. But it is so good. Now, the other reason why I would suggest you listen to it as an audiobook, besides the fact that the narrator is so fantastic, also it is, the other point of view we get is a podcaster, or someone who has like a podcast style channel, maybe a YouTube channel, where they're talking about the events of the prom night. That's all I'll say. 5 stars, read that freaking book. Do yourself a favor. All right, so the next few books, I'll start off with A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. So it's a Book of the Month Club book. I have said this in previous videos. I know that I really need to get through the books I have that are from Book of the Month Club. I canceled my subscription late last year because a lot of the books, I was finding them on Hoopla for free. This was an audiobook that I listened to, and it was actually pretty good, but pretty predictable. So I would probably say this was like a 3-star read. So really good, I would recommend, but I don't see myself rereading this again. So I'm probably gonna have to unhaul this book, which is fine, but it was fine. So in this, we're following a woman named Chloe. She's a therapist, kind of in like this small community in the South where she has a past. Her father was convicted of murdering young women in the small town. She has worked through that, I believe, and she is now a therapist dealing with, you know, helping people. But within this town, some more girls start to go missing. People start to speculate that that someone is a copycat of her father who is killing these young women, and she ends up having to like unravel this mystery. She's not totally unreliable. She's unreliable to the people, like the police officers, who then like discover like, oh, you know, your dad was this. But I don't think that she was giving like unreliable narrator, in my opinion. But with that being said, I figured out the twist on the twist. I actually saw that happening really early on. So if you've read this, I think you know what I'm talking about. So it was a good, entertaining read, especially as an audiobook. I liked the narrator. There were a few things she almost got me off the scent, okay? She almost threw me off, but I figured it out pretty easily. So still a good book. I would still recommend this, but it was like 3 stars. Good, would recommend, but probably won't ever read again. Next, this is one I didn't really want to talk about, but I figured, you know, I need to talk about it to talk about the last book because I feel like this is how it was done, right? But I ended up reading While Time Remains by Yeonmi Park. This was the book club pick with my mom and my sister. We, when we first had our book club, read her first book, which was In Order to Live. We really liked it, as much as you can like a memoir about someone who escaped North Korea. It's really sad. But none of us knew that she had another book. So when this was picked, it was like, oh, well, of course, like, I think it will be interesting to hear like about her life in America, like what's different. I had high hopes, and honestly, this like just kind of sucked for me. If I had to give it a star rating, it would be 1. Really 0, but it was like 1. So basically, and I don't want to go on a tangent because y'all know I can go on a tangent, but this was really biased, very right wing. I feel like it's really interesting for someone from her background to have written something like this, based on the way that she's leaning now from where she came from. So how can I say this without it getting like ridiculous? Basically, she used a lot of talking points that you would hear on Fox News. Very disappointing. She contradicts herself a lot in this memoir, and some of the people who she gives shout outs to at the very end, yeah, okay, very, very disappointing. I mean, the foreword is written by Jordan Peterson. Yeah, interesting. So it was like reading a transcript from Fox News, right? Like, it was just so disappointing. I will not be reading anything else by her, even if by some miracle she is no longer like she is when she wrote this one. Whether or not she was kind of used or kind of, you know, brainwashed in a way to think this way versus this way, I don't think I'll ever read another book by her because this was just so terrible. Which leads me into We Still Here, Pandemic, Policing, Protest, and Possibility by Mark Lamont Hill. So this was an interesting thing to read at the same time as While Time Remains, because they both kind of take place during the same like time, right? So she mentioned things that were happening in 2020. You know, she also mentions things about the election and, you know, certain people running for president and who became president, and then what happened during the pandemic and what happened to, supposedly what happened to her in these certain institutions and whatever. Versus Mark Lamont Hill giving I feel, a much better representation of reality of what was going on. One thing I respect about Mark Lamont Hill is that he is not someone who isn't going to question everything and everyone, right? So there are criticisms about Barack Obama in here. I think that that's fair. There is criticism about Biden. I agree. I feel like the way that the previous book was political was just so dry, so predictable. Like, okay, we get it. Like, you sound like everybody else. Versus Mark Lamont Hill, who's talking about real statistics, real numbers, what really happened to certain communities, Black and brown communities during the pandemic, how that affected people moving forward. We're talking kind of about long COVID. We're talking about the presidency. We're talking about protests. And the way that we're talking about protests in both of these books, completely different. Especially her commentary on George Floyd, which I found extremely offensive. Versus here, just an overall better book in my opinion. Now, can you compare the two? No, I don't think they're comparable per se, because they're not, if that makes sense. But if I had to, obviously I'm always going to choose this over that based on the subject matter. So this was fantastic. I would highly recommend this book. It's short. You can finish it very quickly. Do yourself a favor and read this one. Okay, so that's it. That is the wrap up for the rest of the books. Now, let's read the slides for the Naruto TBR game and then pick our cards. Passed! You passed the Chunin exam finals. Carry your reward over to the next month. Choose any card you want from your deck. Next up, Konoha Crush. As Orochimaru attacks the village, Team 7 is on their own. Gaara is taken away by his own team after he's injured. Sasuke follows. Sakura and Naruto are sent after Sasuke. Choose your character and continue. As we all know, I have Naruto. Konoha Crush, Orochimaru's attack! Naruto is under a Genjutsu and Sakura has to release him from it. +2 cards. Naruto fights Gaara and struggles to summon Gamabunta. +2 cards. He taps into Nine-Tails Chakra to transform. He creates 1,999 Shadow Clones +1 card. So 2, 4, 5. So I have 5 cards to pull. Okay, so that is 5 cards. But I get to choose, so my reward for passing was to choose any card that I like. So, so what I am going to choose for my reward is I'm going to choose Hinata, and I'm going to choose a book that comes out in the second half of 2023. And the reason why I'm choosing this is because I just got approved for a book on NetGalley that comes out in the summer that I am going to be reading now that I got approved for it, because I do need to do better about raising my NetGalley score, if I didn't already mention that. So now I have 4 more cards to pick. Let's pick the first one. So this is Madara. A book with a main character's name is in the title. Okay. God, do I have that? I don't know. We'll see. Well, actually, I think I do. Let's go Kisame, a book about a family. Girl, that could be Spy Family, if you really think about it. That could be any manga. So we're at 3. Let's go Itachi. A book by a first-time author. Ooh, okay, so this will be interesting because technically, now it doesn't say I can double up, but if I am being fair to myself because I'm a winner, I could put these 2 together because this book that I got approved for is by a debut author. So one more. These are upside down. Let's see. All right, let's go Kankuro. A book with a color in the title. All right. I got my 5 cards. I will tell you what I choose in the next video because I'll have more time to think. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. So yeah, so as a wrap up of the video, I won last month. I picked my 5 cards. That was what the rest of that was what I read in the month of April. I had a really good reading month, if I do so myself. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you watched the other one, you're amazing. So thanks. Yeah. So thank you. If you like the video, please like the video. If you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on other platforms. It's all in the description box down below. And thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.